Social shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can put all that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Yes, people, what is happening? What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you're smashing the like, sharing, and subscribing. Guys, you can see on the screen and you can see in the caption, today we're here to talk about none other the Manchester United forward. A bit of an interesting one today with all the news that's been surrounding Marcus Rashford. I mean, even now, beforehand, you know, in the last couple of seasons, really and truly, especially with, you know, his form and everything for both Manchester United and obviously England, you know, missing out on, you know, squads and things like that. There's been a lot of noise. There's been a lot of noise about Marcus Rashford. And today I'm going to take a look at the Manchester United forward. So, as I said, you know, it has been it's just been interesting news, really, if I'm being honest, you know, surrounding Marcus Rashford, you know, making his debut, you know, for Manchester United in the European competition, scoring on his debut, then scoring on his Premier League debut against Arsenal. You know, it looked like at one point that this was a guy who was going to be on such an upward trajectory, and you just thought that the world was at his feet. You know, Carrington boy, you know, coming through the Manchester United youth system, you know, he was playing fantastically well there. You know, they saw the potential in him from such a young age, you know, at the age of 11. You know, he was playing with guys who were, you know, a lot older than he was, you know, just to increase his level of playing and, you know, his skill and his ability. And you can kind of see that in the way that he plays at this current moment in time. But you can always see that this was a player who was destined at least for the first team. Where he would go from there, of course, we never know with young players, because a lot of things, you know, will come into play, you know, a lot of different factors, injuries, you know, in terms of managers, squads, and this kind of thing. But, you know, LVG, you know, putting him into that limelight from such a young age, I think it looked like it was just going to be a match made in heaven, you know, one of our own kind of vibes and that kind of feel. But at this current moment in time, I don't really think that we can sit here and say that, you know, it's really come to fruition, you know, for Marcus Rashford. Now, we all know how the tabloids work, right? We've seen it before. Quite a few black, you know, English players have been the target of, would I say, some very interesting headlines, shall we say, over the past few years. We saw it with Raheem Sterling beforehand and his tattoo. We've seen it with Marcus Rashford. We've seen it also with other black players, you know, playing in this country, you know, with players like Paul Pogba as well, whereas, you know, their counterparts don't really get the same kind of headlines for the exact same thing. And I think this isn't, you know, about race or anything like that, but it's just very interesting when you do see these kind of headlines and, you know, different kind of things and stories being put out there about players, and it changes people's perceptions and, you know, it changes the narrative around these individuals. And this is something that's always gone on in this country, which will always be a problem, because players are always going to be subject to scrutiny regardless, you know, because if they're not performing well, if they're, you know, they live a lavish lifestyle in comparison to the average man, but unfortunately they're not the average man or woman. So of course they're going to live a completely different lifestyle than the average person. But for some reason, the newspapers, you know, they really do target these players. And to be honest with you, it is more notably the black players, you know, who do play in this country. And then, of course, in the case of Marcus Rashford, you know, even when he does, you know, good things, you know, feeding the kids, you know, when the government, you know, just wouldn't help out or couldn't help out, whatever narrative that they've obviously spun at this current moment in time, you know, Marcus Rashford, you know, someone who didn't have to, someone who didn't need to put himself in that kind of position. At the end of the day, not many footballers would do that anyway. But of course, coming from the upbringing that he had, he felt, I assume, he felt like he could empathize. He could understand where a lot of these kids would be coming from. So he felt, I would give back. And I feel like even doing that, it's almost used as a stick to beat him with, in terms of when he's not necessarily performing on the football pitch. It's almost like people are saying, if he didn't spend so much time doing that, then he would be a lot better on the actual football pitch itself. And it's like, you actually can't win when it comes to the perception from certain individuals. And I don't think for footballers, and listen, who am I to tell them, they are multimillionaires, who are in the 1 percentile of people who get to do what they love to actually do. But I feel like for footballers, it's one of those, because you can never win. There's always going to be someone who's going to moan about something that you do. The reality is, just do what you want. Do what you feel is right, or do what you feel you need to do in whatever situation that it is, and just move on with it. But when we do look at Marcus Rashford now, in recent news, to be honest with you, new manager Ruben Amorim has obviously come in after Erik ten Hag has been sacked, and the new managers come in, and of course, listen, Manchester United have been absolutely a poor establishment, since Sir Alex Ferguson left, and of course, they've lacked a direction. They for a club, a massive club like Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in world football, to really lack the sense of direction that a club, who seemed to have it all, under Ferguson, or under Ferguson's reign, right now looking like a club who does not have a clue, who doesn't know which way is up, to be honest with you. And new managers now come in, Ten Hag, he's done what he's done, that's in the past. The new manager has different ideas, and as of recently, we've seen the news in regards to him being dropped from the last couple of squads, which of course has then in turn seen Marcus Rashford, we've seen recently talk about he might potentially exit Manchester United. And again, like I say, it's just interesting kind of news, especially because of the trajectory that we had, what we thought we were going to see with Marcus Rashford at one point. A guy who, in one season hit 30 goals, 9 assists, just one short of 40 GA in 56 games across all competitions. That's crazy. A guy that we thought that was, being compared with Kylian Mbappe, in terms of the player that he could be, the player that he is, the kind of trajectory that, of course, Mbappe was on. We all thought that these were going to be the two left wingers who were going to be battling it out, for the future Ballon d'Ors potentially, alongside, a few other players. But unfortunately, it just hasn't really worked out that way for someone like Marcus Rashford. And I just think that with the loss of form that he's had, last season not being particularly great, 8 goals and 5 assists, in 43 games across all competitions. Of course, it's just, we're not asking for, 30-30, or, we're not even asking for the numbers that he was getting, necessarily, but you are asking for a bit more consistency. And you can see over the last few seasons that consistency for Marcus Rashford just hasn't been there. And whether he will say it, whether he has said it, in terms of, his performance levels, being dropped from England squads and tournaments and things like that, again, something we thought that wasn't really going to happen. I think that for Marcus Rashford right about now, he is just in a state of, maybe he's just had enough. Maybe he needs something different. Maybe he needs something new to almost invigorate and, push his career forward, so it doesn't just stall out and he becomes that wonder kid who never really lived up to the hype, kind of thing. The boy who lived kind of, that kind of vibe. And of course, listen, look, I'm not a Manchester United fan, but from a player aspect, I do kind of see maybe where Marcus Rashford might be coming from, especially being in this country. I don't think you guys understand the scrutiny level over here in terms of the media attention that you do get, especially for, as I mentioned before, one of the biggest clubs out there. It's quite a lot. It can be very, very intense. And maybe, as I said, he just needs a different scene, a different environment. And who knows where that could take you, years away from England. We've seen other players go, come out of England and thrive, Jude Bellingham, of course, being one of those players. You've seen Jadon Sancho, and funnily enough, he's come back to England. And, now look at the kind of narrative around someone like Jadon Sancho, Paul Pogba, the same thing. Players have left this country and had absolutely fantastic careers. And I think that's something that more players should be looking at doing. Of course, you want to keep your best players, your favorite players at your football club, but again, if I'm just looking at this from a purely player aspect, which is to me more important than anything, because it's the player who needs to decide what they want to do. If he wants to kick his career on without it kind of just tailoring off, I really do think he needs to make a move, whether it's abroad, whether it's just to a different team, a new environment, whatever it is. I do believe that potentially can save his career, because right now I just don't see how his career is going to get any better by staying at Manchester United, unless there is a real shift in both the club and the players' mentality over the next couple of seasons. But of course, we'll wait and see in regards to Marcus Rashford. We'll see how this kind of plays out, for him and his future. I hope for his sake, he's able to make the right decision for yourself, to be honest with you. Make whatever decision you feel is right at this current moment in time for your career. The January transfer window is coming up, so maybe that's time to move, maybe the end of the season. He mentioned that he will be putting out a statement if he were to leave Manchester United. So let's wait and see. We'll see how this kind of plays out, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section in regards to Marcus Rashford and his career up to now, but also what you think he should do moving forward.